Hey everyone, in this video, I want to show how you can configure Cortex to use Postgres as the database. So, as we all know, Cherwell in the hosted environment and Cherwell if you are running it on premises, you needed to use Microsoft SQL Server for the Cherwell data. And the way that you get your database backup from Avanti, again, if you're hosted, is as a Microsoft SQL Server back file. It's a full SQL Server backup. And the only way to get access to that data is to restore it to a SQL Server, to Microsoft SQL Server. And until now, until Cortex 2.0, the only way to run Cortex was on that Microsoft SQL Server backup. But starting with Cortex 2.0, you'll be able to run Cortex for Cherwell using Postgres as the database that stores all of your Cherwell data. Now, converting your Microsoft SQL Server database to a Postgres database is outside of the scope of this video. We actually have a video that just came out or is about to come out. I'll leave a link down in the video description to that video, so that you can convert your uh, Microsoft SQL Server database backup to a Postgres database. We actually have a little utility that we've shipped that allows you to do that. But this video assumes that you already have that Postgres database all ready to go, all set up. And I want to show you basically a couple changes that we've made that allow you to uh, connect to Postgres. So I'm going to switch over to my demo screen. And we're actually looking at the app settings.json. So if you've run through the installation instructions before, you know that basically the way to configure Cortex is to set up some connection strings, actually up until, mm, I think it was 1.7. No, 1.6, 1.7, somewhere in that time frame. There was only one connection string to configure. And then licensing, and then authentication. So you can see I've set up authentication type equals none just to avoid that right now. Uh, I'm not using any licensing. Actually, that's not true. I have another file that um, overrides some settings here in when we're running in development, which I'm running this on my dev machine. So I am actually showing a licensed version, but you just don't see it here. And like I said, in I think it was 1.6, 1.7, somewhere in that time frame, we actually added the ability to have multiple connection strings, one for your shareable data and one for some Cortex specific data that allowed you to do things like create or save ad hoc searches and add new users to the system, override existing security permissions, that sort of thing. In Cortex 2.0, both of those connection strings support Postgres. Actually, technically, both of them also support SQLite, though we don't recommend running uh, SQL using SQLite for your Cherwell data, because there are definitely some limitations there. The Cortex specific data can run on SQLite, but depending on how many users you want to have access to uh, how many users you want to have access to Cortex, it may not be the best option. So typically, Microsoft SQL Server or Postgres are the two options. You can mix and match. You could have shareable data in Microsoft SQL Server and Cortex data in Postgres. You could have both in Postgres. You probably wouldn't have your shareable data in Postgres and your Cortex data in Microsoft SQL Server. That if you already have Microsoft SQL Server, you might as well just use that for both. Um, so, in any event, you've probably already seen what I'm about to talk about in these connection strings. And you'll notice that in this case, both of my connection strings are the same. They don't have to be the same. There's a reason that they are two independent connection strings, two independent settings. You can continue to call the Cherwell connection string default, or you can actually call it Cherwell. It has to be capital C and then lowercase everything else. So that's fine as well. Well, I'll just leave it as default. Most of the connection string is exactly the same. Most of it looks exactly like what you've seen in the documentation before. The one uh, difference is that multiple active result sets is a Microsoft SQL Server specific setting. So if you do decide to use Postgres, make sure you remove that setting. And some of the other special settings might also be as well. So secure and trust server certificate, those sorts of things. If you have those in your connection string, I'd start by taking them out. Um, and if you run into issues connecting to Postgres, then troubleshoot from there. But the key is adding this engine equals Postgres at the beginning. Um, by specifying the engine, this is actually a custom extension on our part in Cortex. So we actually kind of pre-process the connection string. If it says engine equals Postgres, we use Postgres. We assume it's Postgres connection string. If you leave that off, it assumes Microsoft SQL Server, though you can specify that as well. You can say engine equals MS SQL. Uh, you can also specify engine equals SQLite, though again, we don't really recommend that. Um, so basically, to use Postgres, you say engine equals Postgres, semicolon, and then the rest of the connection string looks like you are familiar with. The server, the user ID, the password, and the name of the database. Now, when you run Cortex, and you can see I'm running here, everything is exactly the same. The way we built this out, we made sure that searches work, that filtering works, that browsing records works. So you can go over to browse, you can go to an incident, you see the grid show up, you can go to a particular record, and it pulls it up. Everything feels exactly the same. Everything looks exactly like you would expect, as if you were running on Microsoft SQL Server. Um, Again, we've figured out a way to make full text search work as well. So this works. So you can search for incidents that have to do with printers. And this is not using SQL Server full text search. This is using our own full text search, essentially, using Postgres's native capability. So on that note, there may be slight variations, especially with the full text search. Well, specifically with the full text search, because Postgres does it a little bit differently than Microsoft SQL Server does it. Um, in my opinion, Postgres does it a little bit better. We don't have to do as much pre-processing on the query in order to get things to work. Uh, it basically just works out of the box. So I think you'll find this to be, you know, really, really awesome. If you want to move away from Microsoft SQL Server and you want to use Postgres, that is an option. It works really well. We've been using Postgres for the last several weeks now. And for some of the other stuff that we're doing, we're actually thinking of moving to Postgres completely as the backend off of Microsoft SQL Server. But we'll talk about more of that in a future video when we talk about some of the other stuff that we're doing. Like I said at the beginning, if you want to know more about that stuff, if you want to know more about this, if you have questions, if you want help, come to the Cortex users group every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific. If you can't make it to the virtual meetup that we have, join us in Discord. There's links down to both of those in the description down below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.